The fact that it's changing so rapidly for fish is an indicator that there's some stress in the ecosystem.
Grand Canyon in Arizona. Close to 1 billion tons of rock have been carved out of the ground.
Despite being one of the most well-known and visited attractions in the United States, Grand Canyon National Park still has some surprises in store for visitors. The Grand Canyon may appear to be an ideal location for searching for dinosaur bones, but none have ever been discovered there, and for good reason. The rock that makes up the canyon walls is far older than the dinosaurs, up to 1 billion years older in certain cases. But the canyon itself did not develop until the dinosaurs were long gone. While the dinosaurs may have missed out on seeing the Grand Canyon, numerous other fossils have been discovered that indicate other species lived in the area. They range from 1.2 billion-year-old marine fossils to relatively recent land creatures that died in canyon caves around 10,000 years ago. With each visit, this natural wonder has piqued the interest of experts and tourists alike. A group of scientists recently conducted research on the Grand Canyon. This investigation resulted in a disturbing discovery that could change our understanding of the historic structure. What was this finding, and how would it influence the history of the Grand Canyon? Join us as we investigate scientists' harrowing find in the Grand Canyon. Did you know that prehistoric life forms have been discovered in the Grand Canyon? The discovery of these life forms began with the discovery of a boulder that had fallen over a cliff. Alan Krill, a geologist, was trekking with his students along the Bright Angel Trail in Grand Canyon National Park. On this trek, Krill found a strange rock with marks on it. It was a fallen boulder on the trail's side with what appeared to be footprint markings. Krill, visiting from Norway, photographed these markings and submitted them to his old friend and colleague Stephen Rowland, a paleontologist at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. When the photographs were inspected, it was revealed that Krill had discovered fossilized footprints. According to the study, the prints could be 313 million years old, making the fossil trace the oldest vertebrate footprint ever discovered in the Grand Canyon. It was also the first evidence of vertebrate animals wandering in sand dunes. This ancient footprint was thought to have belonged to an amniote, a hard-shelled egg-laying animal. So how was the footprint preserved until it was discovered? The boulder containing these footprints weighed 100 pounds and had been broken away from the Manacacha Formation. The Manacacha Formation is a massive sandstone that dates back 314 million years. When the preserved footprints became moist, they were covered in sand. The sand had an important role in preserving the fossil marks for millions of years. These footprints were inspected, and the researchers saw 2 distinct sets of tracks visible on the surface of the rock. The presence of a detailed geologic map of the strata along the Bright Angel Trail, together with previous studies of the age of the Manacacha Formation, allowed the researchers to pin down the age of the tracks quite precisely to 313 plus or minus 0.5 million years. As Rowland proceeded further into the investigation of the footprints, he noticed that the fossil traces showed 2 different reptile species crossing over the spot in a diagonal direction. Of interest to the research team was the distinct arrangement of footprints. The researchers' reconstruction of this animal's footfall sequence reveals a distinctive gait called a lateral sequence walk, in which the legs on one side of the animal move in succession, the rear leg followed by the foreleg, alternating with the movement of the 2 legs on the opposite side. Although experts are still unsure if the footprints were made by 2 different reptile creatures or by the same animal on various occasions. This is due to the fact that the second batch of tracks was evaluated and found to move slightly faster than the first. Whatever the case, this discovery is groundbreaking because the Bright Angel Trail tracks show that lateral sequence gait was used extremely early in the history of vertebrate animals. The discovery also represents the earliest evidence of amniotes dwelling in sand dunes, dating back at least 8 million years. Despite the theories surrounding the findings, some experts believe Rowland's study on the footprints may be controversial. Mark Niebel, the Grand Canyon's paleontology program manager, is one such scientist. According to Niebel, there is a lot of controversy in the scientific community about interpreting tracks, determining the age of rocks, and determining what kind of animal made these traces. Regardless, Niebel applauds the discovery, especially given the boulder was in plain sight and many people missed it. The Grand Canyon is missing almost 1 billion years worth of rocks. For decades, experts have been concerned about this phenomenon. The Grand Canyon is proof of history through rocks, with each layer representing a different period on Earth. How would it seem to realize that rock layers dating back over 1 billion years are missing from the geological record of the Grand Canyon? The anomaly, dubbed the Great Unconformity, was discovered in 1869 by geologist John Wesley Powell. As he traveled down the Colorado River, he noticed the unusual gap. Geologists were able to date these layers years later, confirming the Great Unconformity. Rocks with ages ranging from 1.4 to 1.8 billion years old were discovered to be in close proximity to rocks with ages of 520 million years old, which led to the discovery of this information by experts. So, what happened to the missing rocks within this odd gap? Even scientists proposed an explanation for the phenomena in research, claiming that the Grand Canyon's geologic past is more intricate than we realize. Some portions of the Grand Canyon may have changed in a variety of ways over millennia. This transition could have resulted in some rocks being carried away into the ocean. In order to determine the cause of this anomaly, the team devised some analytical procedures for their research. Using thermochronology, they were able to piece together the lost history of the Great Unconformity. Thermochronology measures the heat stored in a rock using a variety of chemical analysis techniques. The findings of this study show that some events may have generated the unusual gap in the geological record. The event was thought to have occurred alongside the violent breakup of the supercontinent Rodinia, which occurred between 633 and 750 million years ago. This must have been a tumultuous time for Earth's tectonics, as it altered and imbalanced rock layers. The materials evaluated by the study suggest that the Grand Canyon endured different geological deformations than the canyon's eastern side. They determined that the basement rock in the canyon's western side seems to have risen to the surface around 700 million years ago. However, toward the east, half of the same stone layers are buried behind several kilometers of sediment. Although the findings of this study are insufficient to adjudicate the case of the Great Unconformity once and for all, the team feels that they are a giant step forward in the attempt to understand the mystery underlying it. The Colorado River is on the verge of drying up. The Colorado River is one of the Grand Canyon's distinctive features, rising from the Rocky Mountains and flowing south for 1,500 miles. The river flows through waterfalls, deserts, and gorges before entering the Gulf of California via the enormous delta in Mexico. As it flows through the Grand Canyon, the river is used for kayak rides, canoe excursions, and raft rides, providing Grand Canyon visitors with excitement throughout their visit. Unfortunately, experts have determined that if necessary action is not taken, the river will soon dry up. Environmentalists think the drought began when Western governments began to divide the water by building dams and diverting the flow to cities like Los Angeles, Phoenix, and San Diego, as well as other rapidly rising towns. The Glen Canyon Dam is one of these dams. Engineers may regard the dams and diverting of the Colorado River as an accomplishment, but environmentalists believe it has been nothing but a risk to the river, particularly in the last decade. Since droughts become a worry in the southwest, the river has been running low for some time. Despite the fact that the river flows freely in the Grand Canyon, boaters may still be spotted cruising across Nevada and Arizona's Lake Mead. However, at the lake's edge, clear lines in the rock walls demonstrate that the water level is much lower than it formerly was. Although climate change is one of the explanations, environmentalists feel dams and river diversion, particularly the Glen Canyon Dam, are key factors. The dam, which is located along the Colorado River, is more than 50 years old. It is the moving machine that gave birth to Lake Powell, and while it is used for hydropower, the water levels are too low to generate any. If water levels continue to fall, water will be unable to flow downriver due to the dam's location. If this occurs, it will have a detrimental influence on water supplies in Arizona, California, Nevada, and even Mexico. As a result, environmental organizations are urging governments to invest in reconfiguring the Glen Canyon Dam's plumbing system. If the dam's technology is updated, there will be more room for water to flow through. Hopefully this is done soon before the situation worsens. The limestone cliffs harbour hundreds of passages that offer glimpses into the distant past. The majority of the canyon's limestone cliffs have caves embedded in them. The Grand Canyon as we know it has several caves within it, with the insides filled with various remains of plants and animals, providing us with insight into the region's past during the Ice Age. The caves also vary in size, with some being so tight that you have to enter on all fours, while others are large enough to have a party in them. In any case, these caves have provided an ideal habitat for bats, birds, wood rats, now extinct mountain goats, and sloths. It was found that the bones of some of these animals have been preserved extraordinarily well due to the bone-dry conditions in which they were found. The well-preserved fossils provided researchers with access to 40,000 years of history and knowledge of what life was like during the Ice Age. When the scientists proceeded to investigate these historical markers, they began with a rampart cave in the canyon's far western side. Several dung balls were discovered spread around the floor by scientists. At first glance, one might think they were excreted recently, although they were produced by a 500-pound Shasta ground sloth that had been extinct for almost 10,000 years. When the dung was tested using radiocarbon dating, the sloth dung deposits were found to be between 40,000 and 11,000 years old. The discovery of old matter in the dung also assisted scientists in determining the animals' eating patterns. Pollen that drifted through the air was consumed by the animals, and it also offers important information about the regional plant community. There were also other skulls recovered, including extinct mountain goat skulls and mummified birds. This expedition was led by Steve Emsley, who is a professor of biology at the University of North Carolina and an expert on birds that lived during the Ice Age. He found some birds in caves and was able to study them. According to his chemical analysis, the Grand Canyon birds were most likely consuming megafauna as a delicacy. However, the megafauna became extinct, which could have eliminated the birds as well. Let us know what you think about these new Grand Canyon discoveries in the comments section below.